Oh, what a mess things have been as of late. Everything has been a catastrophe. So let's get started with today's catastrophe. Hello, welcome back to DarkenEmber Forge. My name is Elwin, if you can hear me over the forge roiling up in the background. Today, we are going to take this not very good taper and we're going to make it good enough. So many of the things that I want to do are waiting on this. It needs to be done. I've come to this realization that for being essentially a first set of tools made out of not the most ideal of steel, it's probably 5160, probably, it's a spring, but I don't know. Ideally, it would be, say, an S7. S7 has a very high working heat to it, so it can heat up a little bit more than other things without falling completely apart and mushrooming like my old punch. It's, S7 is designed to be high strike resistant. So, like, you whack it with a hammer, it's less likely to break apart than other things, assuming you work it correctly. I know the more sophisticated tool steels are a little more picky about the heat and the techniques you work them with. Well, this isn't that. This is just meant to get me started. And it is serving the exact opposite purpose. It's holding me up. So I'm going to do some taper practice first. I've done that only once so far, spent an hour working on it. Or no, I've done it twice now. Incredibly frustrating. The second time I was making so many mistakes and messing things so up, I got grumpy and I just kind of tossed it into the bucket to cool down near the end of my hour, and it punched a hole in the bottom of my slack tub. So I've been working on patching that up. You would think it'd be nice and simple, but it is proving to be anything but. Almost done though, I think. I was testing it earlier today and one of my patches was leaking, so I need to repatch the big patch. Ah, what a pest, what a pain. On the other hand, the other day, wanting to desperately get out some kind of video for you guys, I finished these up. I gave them a little polish. Admittedly, they're not pretty either. This one got almost entirely reshaped. My narrow full or thick chisel, whatever I was calling it. My ball end chisel, whoop, that's a striking end. Ball end chisel also got reshaped a little bit to be a little less pointed than it was. But I polished them all up on my belt grinder, got some nice footage of that. And then I came out here to heat treat them, and my camera immediately started overheating. Well, crap. I'd started them, so I had to finish them, so these all got hardened and tempered. I do have some video of the chisel being hardened and some very crappy video of them in the tempering process, not so much, but nothing was complete. I was very frustrated, I couldn't set it out, so now I'm going to finish their brethren and try to get something out. Better something than nothing. I'll see you at the anvil. When I first pulled that out, it sure looked like the ends were sparking, like I'd burnt it. Huh. This clunky chunkin' scale is some weird kind. I wonder if I really did. Or if it's just, I don't know, gunk from how long it's been sitting out in here. Heavy duty scale here. More just trying to knock that off than anything right now. And straighten it out a touch. That's definitely burning the tip of that. One thing I learned is that after practicing last time, I got my hammer blows a lot better, but the angle at which I hold things is not very good. I cannot seem to keep that consistent to save my life. And it comes down to a lot of tweaking it like that, where it's like, oh, I'll just bend the taper the other way. That's certainly just as good as making it correctly, right? Well, no, not really. Trying to square this up a touch. I think I'm more just starting the taper higher now with that. Yeah, if you can see where that was, it's kind of wiggle because of, well, the way I did it. But if I go slow, I'm sure I can get this to a point where it'll be functional, if not pretty. Who cares about pretty? So yet again, my camera died of heat stroke. As you might be able to tell, I've lengthened it a bit, I've centered it a bit. So every time I work on it, I seem to knock it right back out of center. I've put a bit of an octagon on it. And now I'm getting ready to knock the stinking thing back into bloody center. And start working on rounding it. No, that's pretty good. That one's still, what way is it leaning? That needs to come this way a bit more. Okay, that's looking acceptable. That's acceptable. Okay, it's probably a bit too cool for planishing, though I definitely don't want to be whacking this when it's too warm, as, well, I'll keep pushing it out of whack. Okay, a bit more heat and we'll keep working on prettying this up. I felt that bend underneath my hammer. How are we looking? Not too bad on that side as far as center goes. We're a little canted camera left. That should be, no, that's also canted a little camera left. What the heck was I measuring on? Because that's going camera right. So that's tiny bit camera right. Okay, well, bum. Introducing for the first time on camera, I think. Everything's been a mess. This is my belt grinder. Now, do I strictly need a belt grinder? No. I had mentioned before that I made a very expensive splurge. This is the sort of thing that is a very useful tool to a knife maker, which is something I would like to be. But do I need it yet? Oh no. But it sure does make things go a lot quicker. I have taken the liberty, well, I guess first, after we forged this to shape, I know things got kind of messy there at the end with the camera overheating and dying, but I got a reasonable taper on it, and yeah, got it to a shape that I feel will be good enough to get started and work with. I'm hoping. I could have had it, I would have liked it a little bit less, a little more shallow, like a much longer, more shallow taper to give it the option to essentially drift to any size that I wanted. That's just me being lazy and trying to make one tool do everything. But I am ready to do my best to clean this up. I did give this one of those kind of, well, half-assed anneals, where after I finished everything I was doing with it at the anvil, I put it in the forge bricked it up, shut it off after it got up to temp, of course. Shut it off and let it cool down. Gave my camera a couple hour break to cool off and stop yelling at me, and transfer the files and yada yada yada. And here we are again. These belts have done the other ones, the 3 that I shown you at the beginning. I showed you. So these should be a little bit more worn and not cutting quite as fast, which I'm sort of hoping, since I don't really need to shape this very much, theoretically. I just sort of want to polish it up, smooth it up, and make it a little prettier. So we are starting with a 36 grit belt, and we're going to take it all the way up to 220. But first, safety time. This thing spits out a lot of dust, so I have my dust mask. I already have my safety glasses on, because if I put this on first, I'll be muttering when I say I will put hearing protection, because it is also quite loud. Especially when you're down here in a basement where everything just reflects around. I have my hair tucked into my shirt, so hopefully that won't be sneaking out and getting caught. When I was first setting this up, I put a belt on it and I was just tracking it by hand to make sure that everything tracked correctly. And because I had no power on it, I didn't assume I needed to worry too much. And I, of course, got my hair caught in it and pulled my hair. Of course, it was all being done by hand, so it didn't hurt myself. Lesson learned. You might notice I'm not wearing any gloves here. That's a deliberate safety choice. If I bump against the belt with my bare hands, it gives me a little burn, a little cut, essentially. But if I were to bump against with gloves on, there is a chance, though it's small with the heavy leather gloves, that the glove could get caught in one of the wheels and pull my hand in with it, and that could lead to broken bones, lost fingers, and all sorts of terrible things. It's good to be very, very careful with your clothing when you're around something that spins. Alright, so that's going to be it for the 36 grit belt. I spent a lot more time with that than I will with any of the other belts. For one, it's the roughest belt, so it can take the majority of it can take material off quicker. For example, when I had that little divot down here that I wanted to make sure I got sanded out, this will do that faster than anything else will. More aggressively, sure, and there will be, consequences. When I started, the tip of this thing was roughly 1/8 of an inch. It's like, what, a centimeter and a, I don't know. Not a centimeter, millimeter or two. I'll put it up. Now it's a very pointy. I could probably skewer somebody pretty quickly, easily, if I had the need to. I don't know why that was the first thing to pop into my head. Yeah, I do. Old martial art training coming back out. But it's too sharp, so what I think I'll do is finish with the other belts and then file it off to make it the size that I want. As I mentioned, part of the reason why it's going to go faster with all the other belts is they won't take off material as quick, so I won't use them to reshape it. Also, I'm basically just going to dress up the working end of it. Like, if the handle's a little rough, that doesn't matter. These are tools for my use. I'm not selling them. I'm not giving them away. They're for nobody else but me. And if they're rough and usable, that is much better than being unfinished and agonizing over them. So, for now, we will go from the 36 grit belt. Can I scooch that? Nah, of course it's not going to cooperate with me. And we will go up to a 60 grit. Got my Origin blade maker grinder here. Should probably do a bit larger look at it, but for now I'm just planning to clean up these chisels. I have the blunt one here. I have the less sharp than it used to be one here. I'd done a bit of dressing to these, as you might be able to tell if I get my head out of the light. But sitting in this damp, dingy basement, they have kind of rusted a bit. And as I say with this one, for whatever reason, I decided that even though I hadn't heat treated it yet, I was going to try to use it to cut off some of these practice tapers I was doing. Not a smart idea. It kind of flattened out the chisel head in a spot, and I thought rather than file it down again, I would try to clean it up on the grinder and see what happened. At this point, I also have the punch that I'm going to round the head off a bit and make into sort of a ball slash countersink slash whatever else exactly I end up needing it for punch. So I have a 36 grit belt on here. We're going to fire it up and get started and work our way up the belts. All right, let's get her done. Do it to it or something. Shout logo here. For thinking the blunt chisel was going to be the easy one, I decided to reshape the whole dang thing. Kind of on the backside here, but we're going to go up from this 36 belt. Nope, wrong one. Wrong one again. There we go. We're going to move up to a 60 grit. Both of these belts had already been used in the process of polishing up my Mjolnir, so I wanted them to be a little bit used so they theoretically wouldn't be as sharp and wouldn't take off too much material too quick, since I'm going at these probably way more aggressively than I ought to be. Essentially, each belt simply smooths out the grooves left by the previous belt. I should perhaps mention I'm doing things on the slack part of the belt down here where it doesn't have a solid platen behind it, because this is a round tool. And this way, when you're holding it up, you can get a bit of roundness. The belt itself will form a round thing. It's like when you have a towel and you're pulling the towel up and down over or across your back or something. It gets the round part, as opposed to trying to rub against the towel stapled to a wall. That doesn't work well for drying off round parts. Same concept. Also, on the previous set, when I was trying to get out that rough chunk, you saw me use it down here, doing a cardinal sin of sorts when it comes to finishing sanding, and that is you never want to grind it on both directions, because then you make sort of a crosshatch and the whole thing gets hideous and causes a problem. Luckily, I had enough grinding left getting that divot out that it got all that vertical crosshatching out. Anyway, that's that for 60. Told you it'd be quick in comparison. On to 120 and then I got my 220 sitting right here. We'll be done before you know it. And here we are at 220, the finest of the belts that I have at the moment. I don't have any proper finishing belts, so this is it for that.
Turning the end off.
Literally burning the end there. That is the sort of thing, well, that's part of the reason why I'm going to file that down, but if I were doing that, say, to a finished knife, for example, putting the final bit of polish and whatnot on it, that's an area where the temper would be, well, shot. So, no es bueno. Anyway, at this stage in the game, yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's just going to go away anyway. And there you have it. This is only 220 grit, so it's not going to make a perfect mirror polish. However, for a tool that's going to get hammered into chunks of steel and beaten on and probably left outside, forgotten about, and rusting a bit, it does not need to be any more than that. So, as I mentioned, I'm going to file the end off, and then the next step, heat treat this bugger. So I will see you back out at the forge. So long for now.